What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So today I'm doing a top 10 films that demand Criterion releases. I thought this would be the best possible time to do this, considering we just had the amazing 50% off sale at Barnes & Noble this month in July. And I have another top 10 films that demand Criterion releases planned in November after we do our Criterion hauls during that month. There are so many films that I think demand Criterion releases. And I could just do a top 20 and put it all together in one video, but I don't want to blow my Kino load so quickly, and I kind of want to pace this out during Criterion hunting season. So, let me start off by saying this. This list, this first top 20 list, is what I prioritize most as the most demanding of Criterion releases. The next 10 that I'm going to make, I obviously really want to be released on Criterion, but, this video that you're watching are definitely the ones that I am most passionate about in terms of getting a Criterion release. And also note that the films on this list, and in terms of their ranking, are not based on quality. They're not based on which ones I think are better films. So if you see a film that is ranked above a certain film, it's not because I like that film better. The criteria in which I'm basing this ranking on is based on whether or not there is already a good Blu-ray release of this film. How hard is it to access a copy of this film? How hard is it to view this film? And yeah, the quality of the film is a small factor here, but there are other factors, and honestly probably much more important factors, that are going into how I am ranking these films. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start this list at number 10, which is... So at number 10, we have Into the Void, which is written and directed by Gaspar Noé. So, Into the Void kind of already has a decent Blu-ray release. I mean, it's nothing too special, but it does come with the extended director's cut, which is pretty awesome. But, it's not that fancy-smancy of a Blu-ray release, and I just really want Gaspar Noé to have a Criterion release. Rumor has it that Gaspar Noé submitted Into the Void, as a request to be submitted into the Criterion Collection and accepted into the Criterion Collection, but apparently it was rejected. I'm not sure if all this is 100% confirmed, but that's what I heard, which is a huge shame, because I do think Into the Void is a pretty damn good film. I have a whole review on it if you want me to go more in depth, but Into the Void is, I think, the perfect film for the Criterion Collection, because recently Irreversible has had a pretty awesome release. I have it right here. I will never not seize on an opportunity where I can flex my Blu-ray of Irreversible. Really cool UK release, so I guess if you don't have a region-free Blu-ray player, I guess, you can't buy this, but I suggest getting one because it definitely widens your options a bit more. Also, Climax has a pretty awesome Arrow release, which I also own. I Stand Alone actually doesn't have that great of a release, but I'm not really that huge on the film, so I'm not worried about it. But yeah, that's why Into the Void is number 10 on this list. So number 9, we have The Skin I Live In, which is written and directed by Pedro Almodovar. So The Skin I Live In is a film that I loved quite a bit. Again, this is a film that I have a whole review on if you want to check it out. But this film doesn't have a decent release at all. It technically does have a Blu-ray release, but the cover really isn't something to write home about. I heard the special features really aren't, that great. And also, it's not really easy to get your hands on it, because the last time I checked Amazon, they didn't really even have any in stock. So, I think The Skin I Live In is definitely worth a Criterion release, because besides the fact that it doesn't have a great release, it's also just incredibly artful and boundary pushing, and I think it would fit quite nicely in the Criterion Collection. So that's why The Skin I Live In is at number 9 on this list. So at number 8, we have There Will Be Blood, which is obviously written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. So There Will Be Blood is a masterpiece of a film. Every aspect of this film is perfection. And I get that this is a more popular film. This is the most popular film I have on this list. But, I mean, this is, in my opinion, the best Paul Thomas Anderson film, and it doesn't have that great of a release, like, at all. I mean, I own the Blu-ray, but it's just a standard, ugly-looking Blu-ray. This is a film that more than deserves a proper special release for people who love the film and love filmmaking. This is one of those films that I'd buy in a heartbeat. Punch Drunk Love, I think, is the only Paul Thomas Anderson film that is available on the Criterion Collection. I can understand some people saying that a film like Hard 8 would fit more in the Criterion Collection because it's basically his earliest work, and people much prefer watching older films and more underground indie films being restored and being put into the collection. But I'm sorry, There Will Be Blood, I think, is at this moment more deserving of a special Blu-ray release because I think it's just a more deserving film. Obviously, if I was ranking these films based on quality, There Will Be Blood would be at the very top. But yeah, for all those reasons, that's why it made number 8 on my list. So at number 7, we have The Devils, which is written and directed by Ken Russell. The Devils is a film that I only recently saw maybe 5 months ago. And again, that's a film I have a whole review on. Most of the films that are in this video I have a whole review on. But this is a film that I think desperately needs a Criterion release. Mainly because it's just so incredibly difficult to get a hold of. I remember when I did a review for this film, I had tons of people commenting and sending me emails asking how to get a hold of this film. Because most people, the copy that they can get a hold of isn't even the uncensored director's cut that most people watch this film for. And I think the UK has a version of this film that, has the full extended cut. But overall, I think this is a pretty difficult film to get your hands on. And again, besides that fact, it is a artful, boundary-pushing, and shocking type of film that I think should be picked up by no other than the Criterion Collection, because obviously they're unafraid to include stuff like this, unless it's Gaspar Noé, apparently. I mean, they have no problem, including Salo, 120 Days of Sodom into their collection, but for some reason, they don't want to touch Gaspar Noé with a 10-foot pole. I don't know why. But yeah, The Devils is just an insane and batshit type of film that is actually, even though it does have that shock value appeal, it actually does do a decent job at kind of deconstructing and criticizing the religious mind and religious institutions quite well, and how when church and state get together, it just creates such a corrupt and totally unhealthy society. So yeah, The Devils, honestly, pretty damn great film, and it's really hard to get a hold of. There's not really a great release for it, so that's why it's number 7 on my list.
Happiness, I'll get a hold of you some way. Until I do,
So at number 7, we have Todd Solondz's magnum opus, which is Happiness. I don't know if this is actually his magnum opus or not. I've only seen 2 Todd Solondz films. Obviously, Happiness is one of them, and I watched Palindromes as well, and that was interesting. Not as great as Happiness or anything, but that's also... I don't know what Todd Solondz's infatuation with pedophilia, but he seems to include that quite a bit in his films. Anyway, I talked about Happiness in my top 16 most traumatizing films I've ever seen. I don't have a standalone review on it, but it is in that list, and I do kind of talk about it a lot more there. But yeah, this is a film that is incredibly dark. Obviously, like a lot of films in this list, it's very boundary pushing and makes you extremely uncomfortable, and has moments that are unlike anything you've ever seen, for better or worse. This obviously isn't a film for everybody, but it handles a lot of serious and horrendous subjects of humanity in this darkly comedic way that I think is quite smart in a lot of ways, and might put a lot of people off because of how it approaches the subject. But overall, I think it does oddly handle these subjects with a decent amount of respect. But yeah, this is honestly a great film. Obviously, if you haven't seen this film yet, proceed with caution. But this is one of those films that doesn't have a good Blu-ray release. I don't think there's even a Blu-ray release for this film. I think this this is a film that still is only available on DVD, which is why it's so high up on my list, because it's a film that, again, I think does deserve a special type of Blu-ray release for people who, again, really love this film and love filmmaking. So that's why Happiness is number 6 on my list. So number 5, we have The Triplets of Belleville. So The Triplets of Belleville is a film that I talked about in my top 20 favorite animations. If you haven't checked that video out, please do. But The Triplets of Belleville is a film that I think is nothing short of a masterpiece. And I know I've said that about, I think, 1 or 2 films in this list already, but I'm also somebody who doesn't really like to throw that word around often. At least I try my best not to. Sometimes I just get really excited and I just love a film so much that I really want to call it a masterpiece. What do you want from me? But I feel very, very comfortable calling The Triplets of Belleville a masterpiece because it represents everything that I think is special about the art of filmmaking. This film, and I do talk about this in my top 20 animations video, but this is a film that I think represents a universal language. This is a film that doesn't matter which part of the world you're in. This is a film that you can have a profound experience with purely because of the fact that it's told through visual means. And that's truly what I love so much about this film, is that it's able to give you such a thought-provoking and fun experience purely through visual storytelling. And that's something that I really admire, respect, and appreciate out of the art of filmmaking. So if you haven't seen or even heard of this film, I highly suggest you check it out. But even on top of that, the reason why this is number 5 on my list, because there's also not a great release for this either. I think there is a Blu-ray release for this, but I heard the release for it is not even that great of quality. It doesn't even offer really any special features, which is horrendous. And I think it would be awesome for the Criterion Collection to include more animations. You have Fantastic Planet and Watership Down, which I own both. I'm sure there's others that aren't in the collection that, I haven't heard about. But it would be really cool to see a hard copy Criterion release of Triplets of Belleville, because I just think it fits right in for what I think the Criterion Collection represents. So, Triplets of Belleville, that's why it's number 5 on my list. So number 4, we have Dogville, which is written and directed by Lars von Trier. So, I remember when I first started learning about the Criterion Collection and what they were about and the fact that they even existed, because my cousin Eric knew about them pretty much before I did. I had bought a few films from the Criterion Collection, and I noticed that they were, nice and snazzy Blu-rays, but, I didn't know that there was a whole thing about them. I didn't know that they had this entire database of films that they release and, offer these buttloads of special features for. But my cousin Eric started introducing me to the Criterion Collection. I thought for sure that Dogville would be on here. I asked him, Dogville's on there, right? And he was like, no. I was like, that makes no sense. You have Antichrist and Breaking the Waves and even Europa, but where's Dogville? And I only chose one Lars von Trier film to make this list. Dogville and Antichrist are my 2 favorite von Trier films. Antichrist is already on the Criterion Collection, so naturally I'm going to go and pick Dogville for this list. It's one of the most ballsiest approaches I've seen to filmmaking, because it's something that can immediately throw so many audiences off and turn them away from your film. But obviously Lars von Trier is unafraid to do what he wants to do, and I think it really pays off in this film, because it's something that it's able to accomplish something that I don't think a lot of filmmakers can accomplish. But this is a film that I do have an entire review on. It's part of a video where I review 3 von Trier films in one video, so go check that out if you want to hear me go more in depth. But this is my 2nd favorite Lars von Trier film, and it doesn't have that great of a Blu-ray release. I own the German version of it, and actually I think it's a region-free version, so if you want to buy it, go ahead. There's nothing really that special about it. It's like a standard Blu-ray. But this is a film that I would definitely be extremely excited for if they announced a release for it. Honestly, one of those films that, this entire top 5, this is something that I actually might just buy on the spot. Like, I'm not even wait for the damn sale. But yeah, that's why Dogville is number 4 on my list. So number 3, we have Michael Haneke's Cachet. So Cachet is my favorite Michael Haneke film. I know a lot of people's favorite is either The Piano Teacher or Funny Games, which they both already have Criterion releases. But honestly, a lot of Michael Haneke's films have Criterion releases. But even then, like, I want to see pretty much all of his films get a Criterion release. I want to see a Michael Haneke box set, to be honest with you. It's really cool that they have all these individual releases for people who just want to own, certain copies, but not the whole box set. But I eventually want to see a Haneke box set. That would make me extremely happy. But if Criterion is gonna release another Michael Haneke film, in my opinion, it has to be Cachet. Cachet is a film that I just think works on all cylinders. It's one of the best kind of crime-type mystery films, drama-type films that I've ever seen. I mean, the way everything unfolds in this film is so incredibly delicate. It's so incredibly haunting and a bit traumatic in a lot of different ways. But, yeah, I think I also talk about this film in my top 16 most traumatizing films. I could be wrong. It might be in a different list, but off the top of my head, I think that's where it's at. I think it's also in my top 12 favorite films of all time as well. So feel free to check those out. But yeah, and again, there's not really a release for this film. I think there is one Blu-ray release, but it's just a standard, ugly Blu-ray. And I think this is a film that deserves much more than that. So love Cachet. I think it's basically a perfect film. And that's why it's number 3 on my list. So number 2, we have Soy Cuba, or I Am Cuba. I'm not even sure how many of you watching this video even know this film or have seen this film. But this is a film that I put really high up here because this is a film that not only do I think is pretty great, but it is like pretty damn near impossible to watch. Like if you just try searching online anywhere for it, it's not available for streaming anywhere, and there's basically not a single hard copy of this. I mean, if you go on eBay, you may be able to find like some DVD of it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be pricey. And there's just not much accessibility for this film. Every time I recommend this film to somebody, they ask me, how can I watch it? I'm like, I don't know, torrent. I mean, honestly, torrenting is almost the only way anybody can watch this film. So I think this film, for that reason, and also for the reason that I just think it's a great film, deserves to be released on the Criterion Collection. And I think it would be amazing to see a restoration of this film as well. Because one thing that, bugged me a little bit about this film is that some of the audio dubbing was just, like, kind of horrendous. It's really, really apparent that the dubbing just really wasn't there for this film. Obviously not for the whole film, it just had parts that was just really obvious and a little bit, and just kind of takes you out of the film a little bit. But I think this is a film that deserves a restoration and a Criterion release. Yeah, it's technically propaganda. I'm not going to argue with anybody who says it's propaganda because it pretty much is. But it is a pretty well-rounded film for something that is kind of propaganda. And it's something that I think is still, like, technically and aesthetically is really masterful stuff. I mean, the cinematography and the direction of this film is out of this world fantastic. But anyway, I have a whole review on this film as well. If you want to go check that out, please do. But that's why it's number 2 on my list. Alright guys, it's time for my number 1 film that I believe demands a Criterion release. My number 1 film is The Celebration, which is written and directed by Thomas Vinterberg. So, obviously this is up here because not only do I think this is essentially a perfect film on all phases, but this is a film that doesn't have a proper release at all. I think you can buy this film on DVD, but that's it. And I think it's like it's an international DVD as well. And I understand that it is part of the Dogma 95 movement. And I could see a lot of people being like, well, if you get like a restored, HD quality of this film, it kind of loses the point. I mean, I don't think so. The quality of this film is still going to be there, and it's not even for restoration purposes. It's really just because I want to see this film get a proper package release that it deserves and offer a lot of special features that I would love to dig into and see. This is a masterful film, and Vinterberg was able to put something together with sticks and stones and was able to create something that's incredibly beautiful. It's incredibly therapeutic. It handles such dark and deep and human themes with such delicacy and respect, and explores them in ways that are unafraid to tackle the subject, but at the same time create something that is profound and respectful to the subject. And I absolutely love this film for that. There's such a unique style and vision to this film as well that I really, really loved. Yeah, obviously I have an entire standalone review on this as well, so if you'd like to check that out, please do. But yeah, that's basically my top 10 films that demand Criterion releases. Look out for the next one I'm going to make in November after we get all our hauls done. If you really enjoyed what I had to say in this list, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.